she looks down and there's loads of sharks underneath her. And I mean, what would you do in that situation? With sharks in the water, if they can smell the blood.
Yeah.
Like it's just like we're in a dodgy situation.
So could you imagine not having water or food for one day, and I think that was the 4th day they've had no food or water. And I'm not going to be ashamed to admit it, but I welled up at the end, because he didn't just save his own life, he saved his wife's and his baby's life.
That's like when it got me, because I thought like they're a young family, they've got a newborn baby, they're stranded, and potentially they might not have their baby anymore, and that kind of like really hit me. You really need to value the people that are closest to you and do all you can to first of all show them that you value them and respect them, but show them that you would do anything for them as well.
We'll start. Oh, I would like to.
What have you done? You fucked it already.
Just like to do that, basically.
Right. Here we go.
How are we, Sam?
Very good, mate. Very good. How you doing?
Yeah, good. I'm excited to talk about this, actually.
Yeah, it's a topic that you've actually told me to research today.
Yeah, no. So. I mean, so what we're going to talk about today is a TV show. It's a series on Amazon Prime now, which I've found. It's called I Shouldn't Be Alive. And it's actually very similar to the concept of, have you ever seen Banged Up Abroad?
Haven't
No,
seen it.
it's so interesting. I mean, the problem with me is that I'm so drawn into something that's advertised as a true story. So, this program, I Shouldn't Be Alive, I've only watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, same.
But I can tell you the format is just amazing, because as you know, they will interview the people that actually experienced it, and they do a really high production sort of reenactment of it with great actors and the scenery and everything. I just can't fault it.
Well, I just want to clarify as well, the title sounds a bit messed up.
Yeah, it seems a bit
but
dreary,
it's actually, I'd say towards the end of it, you realise it's actually quite a nice story for the majority, well, the ones that we've seen anyway.
You know what it is as well? It sort of puts you back into a state of reality where actually things can go wrong very quickly. So you have to be like, that's the message I take away from that show, that actually, something so dangerous can happen so quickly.
I think it also, obviously we'll go into a bit more detail, the ones that we've seen. I think it also actually, shows you how much humans can actually take in terms of like when they're going through struggle, when they're going through difficult times. I won't go into too much detail now because we're going to talk about the episodes, but like what the human body can handle, I think is unbelievable.
Yeah. I just briefly also wanted to mention Banged Up Abroad. It is literally the same concept. They have the real life people interviewed and also the reenactment.
Could be another pod.
It's a bit, possibly another podcast if people like this one. So I've watched basically every Banged Up Abroad, and what that essentially is that someone commits a crime in a foreign country. They're British or
of course,
British or American, and they get in this really bad situation. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Thailand story for me.
Yeah.
Because technically, I feel like that scenario could have easily went to down a road of being arrested or getting involved with.
I think if you would have acted the way that you said you wanted to act, then possibly.
Yeah. So. So would you like to talk about the first episode?
I can talk about the first episode. Okay. So the first episode, there's these people.
Be honest, because I want you to talk about the beginning, how you felt about the beginning of that episode.
From what do you mean? From what point?
You said it was quite boring, didn't you?
I said it was quite boring because the title in itself, I Shouldn't Be Alive. Obviously, I know these sorts of things, they do take time to get into. I understand there's a waiting period to kind of get into the story, but I think it was very elongated. Yeah.
So basically, the first episode, I think it takes about 5 minutes. They're basically just introducing you to all the characters on this yacht.
They're on a yacht, and they're in, I can't remember the exact location. They're in America, and
They're just above New York.
And I think they said they're going to Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, so they're going from north to south.
Yeah, so it's
on the coast of America.
Yeah, so it's a very long journey, and they've got the main lady, I'd say, involved. She's the one who's kind of narrating it as such and telling us about her experience and talking through everyone in the crew. So she said there was herself. She'd sailed around the world. So she was quite an avid sailor. There was another guy who, again, was an avid sailor. The captain was a pisshead, like that's the only way to put it. And then he brought his missus along, who hated sailing. And then there was another guy, an English guy. So obviously, bearing in mind they're all Americans. There was an English guy who was very cocky, very like full of himself. And I think he thought he was the best of the bunch, and probably, apart from the one who didn't like sailing, probably was the worst. And so they set off, and it seems to be, it's really nice. They're talking about how peaceful it is and how nice of a journey it is, how amazing the view is and everything like that. And all of a sudden there's a massive storm. Everyone apart from the English guy is below deck, and he's in
very
control
drunk,
of the boat. Yeah, he's controlling the boat.
Like enjoying the waves,
Exactly.
basically.
Like he's
like
off
a roller
his head.
coaster.
He's off his head, and obviously, if you think about that person's, apart from obviously the massive storm, he is in control of what happens to you, like the direction, or attempting the direction that you're going in. Then I think it's the girlfriend of the captain comes up on deck, and she falls over, so she's injured straight away. Ultimately, the yacht capsizes, and they've got, I think they kept calling it like a Zodiac. It was like a rubber dinghy.
Yes, yeah, essentially a tiny boat. And
really
it didn't
small.
even have a back to it.
No,
so it's like a sort of semicircle rubber dinghy, isn't it?
Yeah, it was like
really weird.
Very basic. And
Yeah.
I mean, bear in mind, I think they said this happened in 1982, so I don't know the difference between...
Oh, I didn't know the year.
Yeah,
Did
so
they say 82?
Yeah,
Wow.
1982. So I mean, I don't know the difference between the equipment they'd have now and in comparison to then, but I'd imagine there's probably a lot more that they could have done now, perhaps.
Yeah.
So ultimately, the boat capsizes. They're in the water, and they decide that they're not gonna get in the dinghy. They're gonna stay around it and support themselves that way. Then the main sailor, like the main lady who's narrating it, looks in the water. Or she's got the English guy next to her, and he's like, he's saying, "Oh, stop kicking me, stop touching me," and I'm thinking it's a bit weird. Like, why are you trying to touch her up in the water? She looks down, and there's loads of sharks underneath her, and I mean, what would you do in that situation?
Could you imagine? I mean, I know she's a sailor, so she might be used to seeing a shark, but obviously not in the same water.
Yeah, but she said there was
shark.
hundreds.
And she said there was at least 10 to 20 sharks as she looked in the water. And I can imagine at that point being in such a vulnerable position. I mean, a lot of people would, I'm sure, from that shock value, would have just given up there and then. It would have just been too much,
I mean,
surely.
Realistically, like, I mean, I've never, as you're well aware, I've never been in a shark attack, mate. So I wouldn't know what to do in that situation. And the fact that she was so calm in a sense, she's like, they're sharks. We need to sort this right out. And I think ultimately, they flipped it over and tried to get in it, and then they were too. So they flipped over the dinghy, and the captain's girlfriend had a massive gash in her leg.
So when she was trying to escape the yacht, I think there was some metal wire
got caught on her leg,
basically gouged her leg to the bone or something. It was really
so
bad.
So she was in a vulnerable state anyway, and you've got to think with sharks in the water, if they can smell the blood.
Yeah.
It's just like we're in a dodgy
It's
situation here, and you've got to think as well. Obviously, they're in the middle of the ocean. I think it's the Atlantic Ocean. They're in the middle of the ocean. You've got the risk of diseases. You've got the risk of getting hypothermia. Having an open wound is not going to help that. So ultimately, I think the sharks kind of settle, and after I think 1 or 2 days without any food or water, they start to, diseases start to spread between them. The captain is going a little bit delirious, and he says there's an island. So I can't remember what the word is, but they're like I think it's a mirage. You can see a mirage basically, and he's like, oh, I'm just gonna get in the car.
Well, when I was watching that part of the episode, I thought, could you imagine not having water or food for one day, and I think that was the 4th day they've had no food or water.
That's what I was saying at the beginning. Like it's amazing. Like I couldn't think of not eating, drinking, doing anything, and just sitting in one spot for
in the middle of the ocean.
In the middle of the ocean, and it's freezing cold. You're not gonna be like, well, this is okay. Like you're gonna struggle, and they did that. Ultimately, I think it was 6 days with no food, no water, and it's like it's mental. And that's what I was saying. Like the body can obviously take on so much, and it's strong enough to survive those sorts of situations. But I think it's ultimately the survival instinct that you have. The 2 main people who they interviewed, who were in the who were like narrating the whole show, they said that they kind of let everyone else get on with what they wanted to do because they were a little bit delirious, whereas they were kind of seasoned sailors and they knew what they were doing. But ultimately, the captain was like, "There's land," and bear in mind they're still in like shark infested waters. He just jumps off the dinghy, and straight away he's not. First of all, there is no land, and he's not surviving at all. So he's gone. He's been eaten by the sharks within about must have been seconds, if I'm honest. And then before that, him and the English guy drank loads of salt water.
Yeah, they drank. Yeah, so I think this is where basically the insanity. I mean, you genuinely gain insanity from not being deprived of food and water, and they just went past that barrier of having any sanity and started drinking loads of seawater, and you know that drinking loads of seawater can kill you.
Yes.
Can kill you whether or not you've had water or food. And
Go on.
no, I was just going to say it is just another example of what people's bodies go through in that sort of state, because you're not just trying to survive from having no food or water, you're just trying to survive in that environment. That is, and can you imagine, in a way it is a bit messed up that you're so thirsty but you're surrounded by water. It's messed up.
It is a bit crazy, but I think obviously I know that the insanity kind of set in, but you should know, like, especially as a sailor, the captain of a ship or whatever, you should know he's, as we're talking about water, as a little sip.
I'm gonna have a nice sip of water.
Like, you should know that this is not the best situation, and I mean, they were without food and water for 4 or 5 days at that point, but ultimately he did kill himself because he jumped into bloody
but without sort of doing it on purpose. He sort of jumped in that water thinking that's that, and he's gonna go to the island. But anyway, to wrap up this episode of episode 1, so both of the guys die and one of the girls dies, leaving the head sailor and the other captain, right?
Yeah.
So they're very determined to make it through, and sort of what I found very interesting, the program kept showing you where the dinghy was, and it was actually going into deeper,
further out
into the ocean. So they were not going anywhere near.
Well, they were quite literally going in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
and with the exhaustion of, first of all, doing nothing, having no nothing going in your body, there was nothing left of them really. And before they got rescued, the guy actually fell into the water, and the woman couldn't help him. Like, they were quite close, and the woman couldn't help him because she was so weak, and she just sat there crying her eyes out, and she was like, "I'm so sorry, I'm gonna make it up to you." And ultimately then they were saved, but I think that just shows like the survival instinct of someone who had done so much to warn everyone of the sharks, and she was so kind of calm the whole way through, even though there was diseases spreading and people were dying.
Well, they were surrounded by death, and essentially, weren't they? They had a lot of people in that same dinghy who just gone, finished.
But then she did also say that if she wasn't with this guy that was still there, she didn't know what she would have done. She may have lost her mind and jumped. Like, you don't know, because she couldn't actually stand the people that unfortunately lost their lives.
Yeah.
It's a bit mental though.
Is mental. I mean, the thing is, I know this sounds like a bit too, like, maybe for some people it's a bit too much, like it's a bit crazy, but what I take into considerable value of the story is that it's a true story. This actually happened, and it goes to show the human spirit can push through, and it can sort of, because it would have been so easy for them to have just given up.
Yeah, they all could
Do you
have
know what
given
I mean? Yeah, they could have.
Because it would have been over quickly.
Yeah, especially when they've got sharks basically stalking them for days, and at one point the sharks were actually nudging the dinghy. But anyway, that was episode 1, and then episode 2.
It's a bit different.
It really is different, and it pulled at my heartstrings right at the very end of the episode. I'm not ashamed to say, I quite welled up at the end.
Yeah, it's sad, this one.
Episode 2. Basically, it's sort of like a naive young couple. I think one of them's 20, the other one's 21. They've just recently had a baby. The baby, I think, was about 4 or 5 months old.
Yeah, it's very young.
And it was around the Christmas period. They had to drive from San Francisco to Idaho, I think it was, and that is basically an inland drive. It's quite a long journey. I think it was about 18-hour drive or something like that. So they were very determined to get there. To get there in time for the holidays, right? So they drive from midday, I think, and then they drive into the evening, and then there's a really bad sort of snowstorm. Even all the radio stations and TV, all the media were saying, do not drive in this. But, as I say, they're naive, and they were very determined to get there. And it cost them, because they got in a really bad storm, and the male driver... he basically was driving in the dark and started driving off-road, but didn't know he was driving off-road for hours and hours and hours, until the truck basically sunk in snow, and he's like going, oh well, what we do, we just stand outside and wait for someone to help us on the road. So by the morning, they wait till it's morning, so they sleep in the truck. By the morning, when they get out, they realise they're just literally in the middle of
nowhere.
There's no road, there's nothing, it's just mountains of snow. And to cut a very long story short, after 4 days of being in the truck, after listening to the radio, they realise no one is looking for them, no one's reported a missing person, and they had barely any food. I think they had half a packet of crisps and like half a cake.
They had like the crumbs of it, basically.
Yeah. So they venture out of the truck to save basically their lives. They write basically a will.
Yeah, that was really sad.
Messed up to think. Like as I say, they're so young, and they're talking about their will, and
they've got such a young baby as well, who they've got to care for whilst doing all this. Is so sad.
So majority of their venture into the snow, it was knee deep in snow, and I think that was really sort of, for me, it's sort of like when you hear that you're shin deep in snow every step, that it's just so exhausting to even think that you're going for like a long walk. I do want to cut a very long story short again. So they venture out. They cannot find any road or any sense of anyone being present or anyone being alive in the area. They can't see towns. They've got literally no idea where they are at all. And they realise that it's actually gotten to the point where they need to go back to the truck. Otherwise, they will perish in the snow, in the dark. And they find this cave. The husband, he basically says to them, look, he says to the wife, you're going to have to wait here with the baby, and
Imagine that, like, she She got no communication with anyone.
Yeah.
She just sat there.
And again, no food, but they were eating snow.
Eating snow.
Which I guess is water is
It's more than what the other people
Yeah,
had.
it's more than episode 1 people. So yeah, he says goodbye and then ventures out, and he comes across someone, the only person living in. He's so lucky in a way because he was driving.
Well, he again thought he was imagining something.
Yeah, well, you would do in that sort of state, and I'm not going to be ashamed to admit it, but I welled up at the end because he didn't just save his own life, he saved his wife's and his baby's life, and they actually had to have their toes amputated because both of their feet went completely black, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
And when you think though, it is a small sacrifice to be alive and keep your.
Well, the little boy is healthy now.
Yeah.
But I mean, it could have been so much different because when they were on their hike or trying to find somewhere to go, they had him in like this little like pouch or something, and I found it very weird that they did the zip all the way up.
Yeah. I feel like they were just trying to keep him as warm as possible. I mean, to put this into context, because I might not have told the story as well, but this was 9 days. Mm-hmm. 9 days being stranded. 9 days of basically no food and just eating snow and trying to keep. I mean, the really sort of heart-aching moment was when they said every time they stopped, the baby would cry.
Yeah.
And then one time when they stopped and the baby didn't cry.
That's like when it got me because I thought like they're a young family, they've got a newborn baby, they're stranded, and potentially they might not have their baby anymore, and that kind of like really hit me.
Yeah, and even the mother said the actual you actually see the real mother in the program. She says that if the baby was not alive, she would have just given up there and then, and you just feel like wow, yeah, it's so strong, but. Overall, I know it's like quite a sad story, but I don't see it like that. I see it as such a positive because in episode 2 particularly, everyone survived, everyone made it through, and they probably learned a really important life lesson in realising that things can happen bad really quickly and actually not to be naive. Listen to what the media is saying in terms of like try and keep safe. Yeah. And I feel like we could take that message into our situation now with COVID. I mean, there's certain things which, don't get me wrong, I think is a nonsense. But, it does really get to me when you see these morons walking around with no mask on in places where they should be wearing a mask. That's my only thing I'm going to say.
I agree. And
that's my only thing I'm going to say. I'm not saying wear a mask everywhere you go, wear a mask in your car. I'm not saying that. But if you are told and you know that you're in a public area around people, wear a mask. Like actually treat not just your own life with respect, but others.
And I think as well, like with both stories, you got to think the people. Obviously, one was a family, but the 2 people in episode 1 that were closest survived because they relied on each other and helped each other. And obviously, with the family, I mean, it's a touching story because they're going to do all they can because effectively they're helping someone who's defenceless because the baby can't do anything. And the fact that they all came out, okay, yes, they had to get their toes amputated, but even they said, like, it totally worth it.
Small price,
yeah,
isn't it?
Small price to pay.
I had a surprise question for you. I wasn't going to tell you about it. Have you ever had anything like that in your life, like a near-death experience or a near something bad happening to you experience?
I mean, it's going to sound really silly in comparison to these.
Yeah.
But I when I was younger, went on like a weekend away or like a 3-4 day trip to Cornwall. Didn't actually happen to me. It happened to a friend. He was like the waves. They went down to the beach and the waves were crazy, and he thought it was a bit. Well, we thought we were, lads, and we didn't want to get surfboards, so we got them like boogie boards.
Yeah.
And he got one and went very far out. Bearing in mind, it's just us 2. So if something happens to one of us, the other one is stranded. There's no one around. They can't call their mum or dad because we were like 17 at the time. And he went really far out. We had to get the lifeguards. The lifeguards struggled to get him. And I just thought in that sense, like, okay, it didn't happen to me personally, but I think that you really need to value the people that are closest to you and do all you can to, first of all, show them that you value them and respect them, but do show them that you would do anything for them as well. Like, I know, I'd say I have a select group of friends, yourself included, that if they're in, if they're in like a dire situation, like, I'd do anything to help you. So yeah, I think I haven't personally been in that situation. How about you? Have you been in anything like that?
It's really strange that you mention the sea, because I had a similar story. I was very young, but it was sort of like really sort of traumatic because I remembered it for such a long time. But basically, we were on a family holiday. I was maybe 6 years old, and my sisters
really
would have been about 3. And I loved sort of messing about in the waves with like my boat or my rubber ring.
Mm-hmm.
At that age, like, yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And what happened is that I just so stupidly as a kid, it's not really stupid, but it's again naive, I am purposefully swimming the opposite direction, so not towards the beach, towards the ocean, right? And I'm swimming and I'm swimming and I'm swimming.
Do you think you knew what you were doing?
No, I did. No, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say I had no idea. I would say I had no idea what I was doing. To be honest with you, I was just messing about as a kid, and I had my I had like a donut. You know them.
Yeah, like the rubber
inflatable donut. Yeah. So I was using that, and I was paddling along, and I sort of realised that when I turned round after quite a while paddling, like maybe 20 minutes, like just, you know what I mean? Like, I guess I was just on autopilot. I turned round and I sort of like realised that my parents are sort of like saying, come back, and I thought, okay, well, yeah, I am quite far out, to be fair. Like, even at that age, I was like, shit, I actually am quite far away. Like, this is a bit stupid.
Yeah.
And I'm now sort of like paddling, and really, I even at that age come to the realization I can't move forward. I can't move in that direction because I didn't think it at the time, but looking back, it's because I was in a stream.
Yeah.
So the stream's pushing out in the ocean, so essentially, I'm not going the way I want to go. I'm literally just standing still. So I got so exhausted, I thought, oh, you know what, I'm going to get rid of my ring. So I got rid of my ring. Yeah. Now, obviously, this is where like the issue came in, is that I'm now trying to swim,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm now getting really tired. I'm now thinking, oh, like, I can't do anything. So I started slowing my pace down because I panicked, and then I started accidentally swallowing water.
Oh, that's the worst.
And
I feel like you're getting quite emotional about it.
Well, no, it's just quite traumatic thinking about it when it happened. But anyway, I was lucky enough. I felt like I was really lucky because the lifeguard got me. But I remember seeing the lifeguard for such a long time coming towards me, and I'm thinking, like, how long is this going to take for you to get here? Like, and I really felt like I was in a completely different world. Even though I can see you in the distance. I've got no chance.
You've got no control of what's going to happen.
Exactly. Basically. Yeah. So, you know, experiences like that, even at a young age, really do. When I look back at them now, I do really appreciate, you know, life and even that situation. I wasn't harmed, but it really gave me some great gratitude in certain things.
You've got to put it into perspective. Obviously, you know, very happy that you're here.
Thank you.
And nothing happened, but you know, it could have.
Yeah.
So yeah, and the fact that you were so young, like, were you a strong swimmer or?
Not. I did like swimming, but I feel like obviously when you were a kid and you got that donut, it's a completely different thing to swimming.
Yeah.
And especially when you're like, oh, actually, I need to get from A to B now, and I couldn't do that. Yeah, it was very scary.
Well, that's the thing, you know. I'd say obviously, that's something that will stick with you for a long time, maybe forever.
Yeah.
And you know, when you're in the water or when you have kids and they're in the water, you're going to be extra careful because of that situation.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, check out that program on Amazon Prime. It's called I Shouldn't Be Alive. We've only watched, honestly, we have only watched the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, and I mean, if there's if you do watch it and there's any particular episodes that you want us to chat about, then I'll be more than happy to, because it is.
Yeah.
It sounds quite weird to say it's enjoyable, but you kind of really get really invested, as if you're like, come on, you can do it.
It is in a way a celebration of life, though. It is in a way. When I finished watching episode 2, I did feel very sort of. It was a feel good thing, because
Definitely.
it was actually a successful story. Episode 1 is a bit maybe darker because the people did actually die.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to wrap that up.
Yeah, no, it's been a good episode, mate.
Thank you for watching, guys. Please leave a like, share. Please, for God's sake, comment. Leave, we want to know that you're there.
We want to hear from you.
Yeah, exactly. So, you've made it this far. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
You can do it.
Just even leave a comment saying, I'm still here.
Yes.
And that's all we want.
Okay. Sam, I've been Jack.
I still am Sam, but...
And I'm going to say, be lucky.
And we'll see you when you're older. Wow.